Hey you, yes you, stop limiting yourself by only designing your laser files in 2D. Let's bring it into the third dimension and see how our laser designs can fit together without physically cutting them out and testing. My name is Adrian, welcome back to Cartel Files, and my job is to simplify laser design for you so you can start building your next project quicker. Hey, quick timeout. Please go down and hit the thumbs up button, like this video, and please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and keep making free content for you every week. Now let's get back into the video. Let's head over to CorelDRAW, and here you can see a design that I've already started. I've made a post which will be supporting a sign, and they will just be connected together with two pieces of string. Okay, but what I need to do is design a base that this post will fit into, okay, and then that will be able to support the whole design. And right now, if I was to do this in CorelDRAW, Illustrator, or any other 2D software package, I would just need to basically eyeball it. I need to just guess and create a design that I think will work as a base, but I have no way to know if it looks in proportion or if it's actually going to physically work unless I laser cut it and then test it. So I'm proposing a new solution, which is to design that piece in 3D. As you can see here, the post and the sign is what we call in the same plane. Okay, so it's in the XY plane, and then we've got a base piece here, which is in the Z axis, in the Z plane. Okay, and it's very easy to design anything that's all in the same plane, but it really gets difficult once we start working in multiple planes. It kind of, you have to use your brain to start designing these things because you're designing in 3D in your head and then converting that to 2D. Whereas in this process, we'll just be able to do it all in 3D. So I've come up with my base design. Now what I want to do is take this out of Corel and bring it into the other software package so we can start using it in 3D. Okay, so what we need to do is, I like to always break things up into separate components. If you know that something is going to be in the same plane, then you can just combine the two. So you can select the post here and select the sign, export them as two separate components or as a single component because they're both in the same plane. But the way that you do that is you click on the curve and we head up over here to File and Export. Okay. When we export our file, we want to make sure that we choose the DXF AutoCAD file type. So the extension is .dxf. It'll be in the list and it's alphabetical order, so it's down here under D. So export those two components separately, and then we're going to head over to our other software package, which is Autodesk Fusion 360. It's a completely free piece of software for hobbyist use. If your company is making less than 100,000 US dollars, then it's completely free of charge. If you are making more than that, then that's up to you to speak with the supplier to work out pricing. But for what we're doing, this is perfectly fine to use the hobby version. So what we want to do is we want to start a new design, and we want to come up here and click on Create Sketch. Okay, click that option. Then click on this front plane here. All right, and I'll just make myself a little bit smaller. Now what we want to do is we want to insert that previous design into this plane. So what we do is we come up here and we click on Insert and come down to Insert DXF. And if you remember, that DXF is the file format that we used to export out of Corel. Then we want to click on this little folder here, select DXF file, click on select from my computer, and choose that file that we want to import. Hit open and hit OK right here. Leave everything else default. And you can see it's now imported that design file. So the last thing we want to do is click on Finish Sketch, and that's how we import that file into Fusion 360. But if we have a look, and the way that you can do this is by holding Shift and pressing the scroll wheel down on your mouse. If we have a look, this sketch is basically paper thin, right? It has no depth to it. And what we want to do is extrude this sketch in order to give it the thickness of the material that we're going to be working with. So to do that, you can come up here and click Create and click Extrude. The shortcut is E on your keyboard. I recommend learning that because you're going to use it quite a lot. But once you've clicked Extrude, you can click on your sketch, and then here you have an option to specify the distance that you want to extrude the sketch. And we want to extrude at 6 millimeters in this case, which is the thickness of the material we will use. If you're using thinner material, obviously put in a different number. Once you hit enter, you can now see your sketch, which was just a simple 2D sketch, now has thickness. Okay, and that's going to help us later on when we design that base, because we want to take into account the thickness of the material so that we can create a slot in the base that the post will then sit within. Now, if we have a look, you can see that the design is upside down for some reason. And I'm not going to get into why this happens, but it's just the way that certain software packages export their DXF file. You may find that your design file is fine, but if it has placed that design upside down, the way that we do that, we fix that is by coming up to bodies, expanding that, and you can see there's an option here called body 1. When we click that, it selects that body, and then we can move it. So there's an option here called Move Copy, or the shortcut is M on the keyboard. Once you've done that, you can now rotate the design to be the right orientation. And if we hold down Shift and use the mouse scroll wheel, we can rotate in a different axis and allow us to point the design in the correct orientation. So it should be facing to the right. Hit enter to update that. And now you can see when we're in that front view, it's now upright and pointing to the right, which is what we want. Now you can go ahead and insert the sign design if you want to take that into account, but I know that the distances and stuff like that is all fine, so we'll just start working on the base straight away. All right, now one thing that I always do to make things simpler is under our bodies, you can see we have a body 1, and this basically is this component that we have here. So I want to right hand click on that and come down to rename, and I want to just rename that to post. Okay, and it just makes it easier when you have multiple different elements in here, just to quickly see what we need to enable or disable or export later. Okay, just makes things a lot more clearer. All right, so now we've got this post in here. What we want to do is come down and we want to rotate our design. So we're looking at the bottom of the post. You see this flat face here? What we want to do is we want to create a sketch from this flat face. So that's going to be the bottom of our base is going to be in line with the bottom of this post. So we want to come up here again and click Create a Sketch. And then we want to click on that base piece here. the bottom of that post. When we click that, you can see that it then changes the orientation. But basically what we want to do now is create a box around about the right size that we want to be our base. Okay. Now, the way I do it is there's an option up here called the 2-point rectangle. I just click that and I create a rectangle that, you know, looks about right and encompasses the whole design. But we don't know if that rectangle is perfectly centered on the design and in the right position and all that sort of stuff. So what we want to do is we want to constrain the rectangle. As you can see, the line is currently blue, which means the rectangle is not constrained. Okay, so I can select that rectangle and I can move that around. And that's not what we want. We want it to be constrained. Okay, so what we want to do, if we look in a different perspective, this is the base of that post, okay? And what we want to do is create a dimension that specifies the distance of the base and the distance away from the post to the edge of the base. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Now, the way we do that is if we come over here, we can choose this option here, Sketch Dimension. The keyboard shortcut is D. So let's click on that and let's first dimension out this distance here. Okay, so conveniently it's exactly what I wanted, 70 millimeters. Okay, but if we wanted to change the size of that, you can see I can type in 50, and when I press enter, the design will automatically be that size. All right, but we want it to be 70, so it just happened to be exactly 70, which is great. And I know that this material thickness is 6 millimeters. So this is going to be 70 millimeters here. Halfway between 70 is 35. And then we have to minus half the thickness of this material. And that'll put the slot that the post will go into perfectly into the middle of the base. I hope that made sense. You'll see in a second. So what we want to do is go back to that sketch dimension. We want to choose this line here from our post, and then choose this outer line here. Okay, and so we want to do 35 millimeters, and we want to minus half the thickness of the post to place the post into the middle of the base. So that is 32 millimeters. Okay, so there we go. And now you can see the top and bottom lines have turned black, which means they are constrained. They can't change. And then, and the reason for that is because we've defined it to be exactly 32 millimeters away from that top surface, and the top surface to the bottom surface is exactly 70 millimeters. So now what we want to do is choose this side line and the side of our post, and let's make that maybe 50 millimeters. So now that constrains this outer edge, and that means we've only got one more edge left, which is this one here to constrain. And the way we do that is we click on the outer left-hand edge, the right-hand edge, and we give that a value of 500 millimeters. So now that is what we call a fully constrained sketch. And the post will be perfectly in the middle of that sketch, and we are ready to rock and roll. So now let's hit Finish Sketch, and you can see what our base will look like in comparison to the post. Now again, since this is just a sketch at this point, we need to extrude it. So the way we do that is we come over to the extrude option again. Again, the shortcut is E on the keyboard, and we want to click on that face, and we want to extrude it by 6 millimeters. But if you take notice here, this arrow indicates which way it will be extruded. And we want it to be extruded upwards because we don't want it to go any lower than the base of this post. So instead of putting 6 millimeters as our thickness, we'll put in -6, and that will extrude upwards. Now, what we want to make sure, which is very, very important, is we check what this operation is. So instead of it choosing join, which will be the default, I want you to choose new body. Okay, so if you had it set to join, it would join or it would combine with anything that it's touching, which would be this post. And I don't want it to do that. I want it to be its own separate body that we're going to cut out as a separate part and then fit everything together. So now that we've done that, hit enter, and you can see now we've got a new body in our list. So body 2, which will be the base. So I'm going to right hand click and click rename. And then once again, we'll just call it base just to keep it nice and neat. And we know exactly which body will be for which component. Now, I'm pretty happy with the size and shape, as well as the thickness of this base. But if I wanted to go back and redesign things, there's a few options that we can do. So if I quickly move out of the way and I resize my window, you'll see down here, this is our parametric modeling structure. Okay, so what we can do is you can see this option here, Sketch 2. If you double click this, that'll allow you to now go back in and edit these values, all right, and start playing around with any of these options. Once you're done, you can press Finish Sketch, and away you go. So for example, if we wanted to now go to 140 millimeter thick base, we can change the distance between these two lines to 64 millimeters, so basically doubling the size, and press Finish Sketch. You can see it has now updated that sketch based on those new values that we've given it. So that's what parametric modeling is. And because we have a timeline at the bottom, we can always go back to any of those values and change them at any time, and the design will automatically update once you press Finish Sketch. So there you go. All right, so let's continue. Now I see one issue, and I want to update the design of the post. Okay, so the post is going to fit within the part like this, but there's not very much support to stop it from tilting from side to side. So I want to add some wings that will then match up with the base in order to stop it from tilting side to side. So the way that we do that is we come back up to this option here, Create Sketch. Okay, and we click on the surface of the post, this front surface. All right, and we want to scroll down and zoom into this section here. And what we want to do is create a line that comes out from the base, across a certain distance, up, and then meets up with this post again. And we want to do it on both sides. So the way that we do that is we come over here to our line option, and we want to come down to this position here at the bottom, right? And we want to come out exactly 10 millimeters and hit enter. So now that we've got this horizontal line, we want to do the same on the other side, 10 millimeters. Create another line. The shortcut is the letter L on your keyboard. And this will be a vertical line of about 20 millimeters. Do the same on this side, 20 millimeters. And then create a line that comes out at about, whatever looks right, about 55 degrees, let's say. Now the cool thing with this Fusion 360 software is you can see if I place my mouse here and I pull it across, you can see it gives you a dotted line that's perfectly in line with another point. So I'm going to come across, find this point, click on it, and then come down and join up with that previous node that we made. And now that these lines are fully shaded in blue, that means we can now extrude them. Because if we have a look here, we're just creating a sketch on this plane, and we need to extrude it to the thickness of the post. So again, we press Finish Sketch, press E on our keyboard to extrude, and then click on these two parts here. And again, look at the direction of the arrow. We want to be extruding in the negative direction towards the back of the post. So this will be -6 millimeters. And in this case, you can see that the operation is going to be set to cut by default. See that? And we want this to be join. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I want the design to join to the post, but not to the base, because these little wings are going to be part of the post component, not part of the base. So what I want to do is come over here to my bodies and choose this little eye option to turn the base off. Now the base is turned off, so when I join these wings, it'll only join to the post and not the base. So hit OK. And now we've got these wings here, which is now part of the post component. And you can see this cutout here is the perfect thickness to fit into the base, right? If I turn that back on, and you can see that the bottom of the post will be perfectly flush with the bottom of the base, right? And those wings will just give it a little bit of sideways support. So I'm now happy with my design, and I want to export it out of my 3D software so I can then laser cut it. So that's the last step, which is now creating a new sketch from our design and exporting that back out as a DXF file. So to do that, I always do my components one at a time. So I'll turn off the base component and have just the post turned on. We go back up to create a sketch. We click on the front face of the post. And we now need to use a projection feature. So that's the letter P on your keyboard. Creates this new window, and it's telling me I need to select a geometry. So I'm just going to select this inside this design. You can see when I have my mouse inside the design, I have a red outline around the whole design. If I only select, if I put my mouse cursor over one line, it'll just project that one line, and that's not what I want. I want the whole outside edge of the design. So I'm going to choose somewhere in the middle here, click on it, and then I want to go over here and press OK. And now you can see there's a purple outline, all right, showing that we've now projected that, that shape. And we now want to finish our sketch. So click on Finish Sketch. Perfect. So now if we head over to our sketches, you can see that there's one sketch that's currently turned on and the rest are turned off by default. And that is the sketch that we just created. So now we want to click on that sketch, right-hand click, and come down to the option that says Save as DXF. Okay, click on that and give it a name and save it somewhere on your computer. So I'm going to call it New Post and hit Save. Now I can turn that sketch off because I don't need it anymore. I've used it. And I want to turn the post off and then turn our base back on. Okay, so that's just done with those little eyes in the bodies section. Now, one thing that I think will make this base look a little bit nicer is if we give it some fillets. Instead of having a sharp edge, Let's give it a fillet. So that's super quick to do. We can just zoom in, and there's this option right here called fillet. The shortcut is F on the keyboard. So I want to click on this vertical line here. You can also click this vertical line, this one, and rotate to click that one. And we can just pull that in by either specifying a number, okay, so a radius value, or you can just click on the arrow and pull it in until you're happy with what it looks like. And I think maybe 10 millimeters looks fine. Yeah, that looks good. Hit enter, and now we can create our DXF file from this, which we can then import back into Corel. So again, we create our sketch. We click on the top surface of the base. We press P to project. Click on the surface and press OK. Go in and just double check that we have that purple outline around everything, which we do. Hit Finish Sketch. And you can see that our sketch that we just created by default is turned on, which is Sketch 5. Right-hand click and click Save as DXF. We'll call this New Base and save that. So now if we head over to CorelDRAW, you can see this is our old design for the post, and we want to update it with our new design. So we can just delete the old one, and we can go up to File and click on Import. Control I is the shortcut. And we will now want to import our new base and our new post option and hit Import. By default, this should be correct, but just double check that the units and everything else is correct in this case. Okay, and then hit OK. And your cursor will now change to this sort of angled option. Select a position, and that'll drop the first file, and then you click again and it'll drop the second file. So you can see now this is the new file with the extra flanges at the bottom. Now, one weird thing when exporting out of Fusion into Corel is that each of the curves or each of the lines are broken out into its own individual option. You can see them all here. So what I want to do is first highlight everything on the post. So you want to do this component by component. And then we want to go up here and press the combine option. Hit combine. And now that is all one curve. Okay. And we want to do the same thing for the base, combine. And now we can give that a red outline to indicate that that's a cut line. And then we can place them over here on our design where we want them. So let's do maybe 600 by 600 page size, and that should fit everything nicely. And that file is now ready to go for laser cutting. And there you go. So that's how we can take a 2D file, export it, use a 3D software package like Fusion 360 to then create something that's not on the same plane as our 2D design, and then bring that back into CorelDRAW or Illustrator or Lightburn or whatever else you're using to then process further in order to cut or engrave later. So I hope you learned a few tips and tricks there. This definitely makes my life a lot easier when I'm working on 3D projects like this. If you want this exact file so you can follow along, this will be available on cartelfiles.com. The link will be in the description below. Hope you download the file and make it your own. Maybe change the design of the post or the base, maybe change the wording on the sign. Get creative with it. Make your own version of it. If you want to share a photo of the design that you've made, you can send an email to hello@cartelfiles.com, or you can join our Facebook group and post it there. Before you go, please make sure to give the video a big thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and keep creating new content for you. This will be our last video before Halloween, so a big happy Halloween to everyone who participates in that. I'll see you in the next video. There's a lot more to come on this 3D design.